Hey guys, wonderful day again today, and I'm back after a while. I think a few things came in the way for me in terms of professional commitments and everything, so I could not pursue some of the content that I had in mind planned to be released in the last 1 month. Having said that, a couple of days back, I was reading the newspaper and I was impressed to see there was a new IPO issue raised by ICICI Prudential Asset Management Company. And if you've been following my content in the last 1 month, you would notice that the AMC companies have been like Canada Robeco AMC company has released its IPO back in October 31st, and then even after October 16th, and then they had their first con call report on October 31st. So if you notice, there's been a lot of activity in the AMC space, and in my judgment, there'll be even more activity in the months and the years to come. So let's look into a brief outlook over why like how many AMC companies have been listed so far. HDFC AMC, Nippon, Aditya Birla, UTI AMC. UTI is basically the Unit Trust of India. Fifth one is Canada Robeco. Sixth, Shriram Finance, and seventh, ILNFS. So there are about seven AMC companies which are currently listed, and there'll be more AMC companies like Edelweiss. In my judgment, there'll be SBI might come will come releasing its IPO again, and there'll be more and more companies like all the mutual fund companies that that are popularly available for the retail investors right now. They will all release their IPOs in the months to come. One of the most interesting questions I was asked in one of the videos I've posted a month back was, why do AMC companies release their IPOs? What is the biggest motive? What's the motivating factor for an AMC company to release its IPO? My judgment is, I think this is what I think is my judgment. So there's something called the AMC companies release a quarterly report where they list the number of systematic SIP flows that are coming into the bank, the amount of assets under the management. So the biggest motivating factor for an AMC company to remain in business is to see if their SIPs are consistent and if the assets under management quarter on quarter and annual year on year is increasing with every report that they're sharing out to the public. Now, there's another metric that they're actively tracking, which is called the B30 cities. So they've come up with a metric which mentions that all their massive SIP inflows and massive retail investor penetration has mostly been 30 cities in India. There could be the top 5 or 6 cities. Along with the top 5 or 6 cities, there are other tier 1.5 cities that I would call it could be Indore, it could be Bhopal, it could be Madurai, it could be these kind of cities, right? Like Mohali for that matter. So there are many 1.5 tier cities, just that have all the facilities of a tier 1 city, but then they're not a tier 1 city in terms of certain kinds of administrative operations. So in my judgment, beyond the top 30 cities, they want to penetrate their mutual fund, their asset management operations beyond the top 30 cities. And for that, the only way they could do that is to raise more capital, raise more awareness that, okay, here we're trying to get publicly listed right now, in which way we would be able to, be taken more seriously. And that would also snowball into another kind of influence, which would create a lot more, how do we put it, a lot more clout from global companies as well to come and have more incentive to invest in the same companies. So it would give a kind of awareness across people. In my judgment, it's really good for the consumer. Why do I say this? It's because if you notice, some industries are massively dominated by just one or two players. The asset management company industry is not just dominated by one or two players, they're dominated by at least 10 or 15 different players. It's good for the consumer only because he has more choice. He or she has more choice. they would be able to understand that if this is not the company I want to invest, they can invest in another company. So extending that kind of choice is really good for the consumer, in which way there'll be more competition and it's good for the market. It should not be an oligopoly, or it should not be a monopoly or a duopoly for any kind of market. And that's why I feel more and more asset management companies should release their IPOs, in the next couple of years. And I had a couple of more points, which is that with an asset management company coming out with an IPO, they will have more capital to be invested. They'll have more operations. They'll be able to raise more physical branches across the country, and then they'll be also in concurrence to all of this. They'll be able to increase the footprint, the foot count in their the number of people, the manpower they have in their operations. That way, they would be able to make sure that they could expand their operations across the country, expand the physical branches, increase the number of capital, and thereby reinvesting that capital in more specialized products. I recently spoke with one of the industry veterans who's now working in Shriram Finance, and I remember him sharing one of these products, which is a mix of corporate bonds and treasury bonds. So they'll be able to extend and experiment with more specialized products in a way that would increase more penetration by retail investors into their products. So that's what I feel is the welcome change when AMC companies are going public. Until next time.